I know I'm supposed to feel personally guilty about the Attawapiskat Indian Reserve because the NDP told me so and the consensus media agreed. I'm to blame, and so are you. Now, I've never heard of Attawapiskat before this week. I spent about half an hour this morning practicing pronouncing it. Frankly, I don't think anyone in the media had ever heard of it before either. But they just picked up the tired script. We're to blame, shovel more money, don't ask questions. Well, sorry, I'm not built that way. I love that Canada is generous. I love that we help each other out. And the idea of folks living in the far north in the bloody cold in houses that are substandard, well, that's the kind of things that, I don't know, tugs at all of our heartstrings. I mean, if we can send foreign aid to other countries, shouldn't we be helping our own needy people first? Check out this squalor. This is brought to you by the NDP Member of Parliament for Attawapiskat, Charlie Angus. He took some of these videos and brought more videos to the public eye. It's pretty amazing. It really does look like a third world slum. Angus is a superstar, the man who's blowing the lid off this scandal. Pretty soon, other politicians schlepped up to Attawapiskat to mug for the cameras, too. It was poverty porn. Here's Nicole Turmel, the NDP leader, trying to get in on the action. She's been a dud in Parliament. She's reduced the NDP in the polls to the point where the Liberals are actually polling ahead of them now. So having poor people pose for pictures with her was just the perfect thing that these spin doctors ordered. Except for a few things. Except for the fact that Charlie Angus has been the MP for Attawapiskat for 7 full years. This is his town. He doesn't live there, but it's his responsibility. Sure, there are questions to be put to the federal government and about the Indian Act and the provincial government. Yes, yes, yes. But what about Charlie Angus himself? These slum-like conditions didn't just pop up overnight. This is not a scoop, this news. It's been this way for years on Charlie Angus's watch for 7 years. He was elected in 2004. Sorry, Charlie. You're not a TV reporter blowing the whistle on politicians who don't care. You're the politician who hasn't seemed to care. At least you haven't cared enough to fix the problem in your own backyard after 7 years as Attawapiskat's local MP. But look, I'm not going to blame Charlie Angus alone. It wouldn't be fair. At least it wouldn't be any fairer than his attempt to blame Stephen Harper. I want to talk for a moment about the people who are directly responsible for the Attawapiskat town. I'm talking about the Indian band themselves. You see, Attawapiskat isn't poor. In fact, it's extremely rich. It's got about 2,000 people in it, so it's about the size of a small town, the size of my high school, really. That is, it's tiny. But it received $34 million from the government last year, and the year before, and the year before. $34 million. Here's the financial statements published by the band itself. $34 million works out to about $70,000 per family of four. Just to be clear, that's just the official revenues of the local band council. That's not taxable income. That's money that the federal and provincial governments and a casino gave to the local town last year and the year before. That's all on top of regular income, you know, what you and I would call having a job. So every family in Attawapiskat gets $70,000 sent to the town for them as a starting point before they even work. But here's the thing. The money doesn't actually go to individual Aboriginal families. It goes to the chief. Another way of saying a politician. And because we're all so afraid to ask tough questions of the chief and council and band managers because they're Indian, we let them get away with corruption and waste that we would never let a non-Indian get away with. Folks, that is called bigotry, the soft bigotry of low expectations. We don't dare hold the local chief accountable. We don't dare ask questions of him that we'd ask of a white politician, because if we did, that would be racist. You know, it's a form of bigotry because it implies that Aboriginal leaders can't live up to Canadian standards of fiscal responsibility and fiduciary duty. It's guilty white liberal racism, actually. It's racist because it implies that corruption and waste are normal for Indians. That's racist to think that way. And it's racist because it also sentences the whole town of Attawapiskat to living under such wasteful, foolish political leadership. Charlie Angus, the MP for Attawapiskat for 7 years, deserves some of the blame. Stephen Harper, the Prime Minister for the past 5 years, deserves some of the blame too. But don't you think the politicians, the local chief and band council and band managers, the one right in the town, deserve the bulk of our scrutiny? What the hell are they doing with $34 million a year? Well, some of it went to this hospital, looks pretty good for the far north. But some of it went to this school that was cleverly built on a diesel fuel spill, so they tore it down. Now, is Stephen Harper to blame for that? Is racist white Canada to blame for that dumb decision? So more money came into the band, But did the local band council choose to build a new school? Of course not. They built a gorgeous hockey arena. And they bought a Zamboni and shipped it up there. Seriously, a new Zamboni cost about 75 grand. Hey, maybe that really wasn't the most urgent thing for this poor town to buy. But if it wasn't, who's to blame? We've seen the ugliest pictures out of Attawapiskat, the shantytown-like houses that look like something straight out of the Occupy Toronto protest. And there are some that way, but take a look at some of these pictures from Attawapiskat, too. Here's a substandard house. Yeah, but they've got money for a nice big flat-screen TV, though, and apparently the electricity for it, too. Who's to blame for that weird priority? TV, but not proper insulation. Stephen Harper? I won't even blame the local band council for that one. Where's the responsibility of the mom and dad? $1,000 for a big screen TV, but not $1,000 to fix up a house? There actually is a lot of wealth in Attawapiskat. You can't spread $34 million around a year without some of it landing in people's pockets. I mean, there's a lot of skidoos up there, lots of fancy trucks, helicopters taking folks around. Here's a picture I took off the blog of Georgette Kustachin. It's of a $65,000 pickup truck flipped upside down. Is that Stephen Harper's fault too? I wouldn't even blame Charlie Angus, for the local MP, for this one. Who is Georgette Kustachin? She's a social services manager for the band. She earned 66 grand last year on top of her freebies. I'm not singling her out. Check out this list of very important, very busy chiefs and managers in this town. The technical services manager of Attawapiskat made almost $90,000 last year. There are literally 3 Indian chiefs on the payroll, a former chief, an acting chief, a deputy chief. So 6 figures in this town is going to 3 chiefs for a town of 2,000. And then there were literally 19 band councillors. Could you imagine a town of 2,000 people having 3 mayors and 19 aldermen? And then the unelected staff like Georgette? No wonder the town's so poor. It gets worse. A few years ago, a huge mining company, the world's biggest, one of them at least, called De Beers, opened up a diamond mine just 90 kilometers away. That's amazing. What a huge opportunity for Attawapiskat. And De Beers has gone out of its way to hire Aboriginals. They set aside $49 million a year for Aboriginal spending. That's more than the entire government gift to Attawapiskat. $49 million from a private company. De Beers isn't just a source of jobs and money. They support Aboriginal culture, too. They support local festivals. Look at this festival they sponsored right here. A couple of years ago, when the toilets backed up in Attawapiskat, De Beers, the mining company, sent in for free, from its own cost, some all-weather mobile homes that they had used to house some of their miners. They gave it to Attawapiskat for free. They sent in engineers to help rebuild the town's sewer system for free. 100 people in Attawapiskat are still living in that free housing from De Beers. It's amazing. So what did the town do to thank De Beers? They blockaded the road to the mine, demanding more freebies. Seriously, what a shakedown. Who did Charlie Angus, the MP for 7 years, blame for this mess? He didn't blame the local Indian band for their poverty. He blamed Stephen Harper for sending in an independent manager this week to take over from this wasteful, corrupt band. Yeah, I said corrupt. Spending money on a hockey rink and a Zamboni instead of a school is a breach of fiduciary duty. It's not racist to say so. In fact, it's racist to make excuses for such a band council, because we'd never make excuses for a white town council that did the same thing to its people. Here's Charlie Angus, the NDP member of Parliament, on Twitter, actually criticizing Harper's decision to send in grown-ups. Look what he says. He says this response of putting in third-party financial management is vicious. Tories are putting in third-party management. After a month of inaction, they blame the people. No, that's wrong, Charlie. Harper isn't blaming the people. He's doing the obvious. He's recognizing that Attawapiskat is broken and just shoveling more money at them. What? Would $140,000 a year per family be any different? It would be wasted just like $70,000 a year per family is. Here's one more tweet from Charlie Angus. He says $6,500 per capita to run the band, 80% of funds for education, 10% for welfare, $500,000 left for housing. Real math, not Harper math. Sorry, Charlie, that's just not true. I showed you the budget earlier on the screen. The budget I showed you, the financial statements I showed you, were not from Stephen Harper. They weren't from the NDP. They were from the Attawapiskat First Nation themselves. Charlie Angus, you're lying because you finally got what you always wanted, media attention. Let me close with a quote from a regular person, not a fancy band chief, not someone pocketing the millions of dollars a year, certainly not some white politician, either Harper or Angus. Let me quote to you from a regular Indian named Stella Wisk, who has to live up there. She lives in a trailer with the dad of her 1-month-old baby. In other words, she's a victim up there, not a perpetrator. Who does she think has screwed things up? Let's ask her. Quote, I'm not angry with the government. It's mostly the band office, unquote. Clearly, according to Charlie Angus, this woman is just a vicious racist. Look, there's plenty of blame to go around here. A double helping goes to the local hero, Charlie Angus, who's presided over this squalor for 7 years as a local MP. But if we respect Aboriginal people as equal Canadians, then we have to make a decision. We have to respect Stella Wisk and defend her rights as much as we would if she was a white woman being screwed over by a white town council. And we have to hold the First Nations chief to the same standards of accountability as we would for a corrupt white mayor and white town council. And anything else is just racism, the kind of racism that has held back Aboriginal people in Canada for more than a century.